Your brain is hardwired to make the worst possible investment decisions, and I can prove it with one simple question. Right now, what sounds more exciting? Buying GameStop at $400 per share, or investing in a boring dividend ETF that's returned 110% over 10 years? If you say GameStop, congratulations, you just demonstrated exactly why 90% of retail investors lose money. Here's what neuroscience reveals about your investment brain. You're not making rational financial decisions. You're making Stone Age survival decisions with modern money. Your prehistoric brain sees a meme stock shooting up 1,500% and thinks, quick, grab the food before someone else does. But it looks at a stable ETF growing 10% annually and thinks, this is boring. Where's the immediate reward? In the next 20 minutes, I'll reveal the 3 psychological traps that keep investors poor, why your brain is literally addicted to financial self-destruction, and how 3 specific ETFs can rewire your investment psychology for long-term wealth. This isn't just about ETFs. This is about understanding why your brain sabotages your financial future and how to fix it. Before we dive into the psychology, you need to understand something disturbing about your investment brain. For 200,000 years, humans survived by making split-second decisions about immediate threats and immediate rewards. See a berry bush? Grab the berries now before someone else does. Hear a predator? Run immediately or die. This immediate action programming served our ancestors well, but in the modern investment world, it's financial poison. Your brain looks at a stock shooting up 50% in one day and triggers the same neural pathways that once said, grab that food now, but it views a diversified ETF growing steadily over decades with complete indifference. Dr. Daniel Kahneman's research reveals the brutal truth. Your brain is optimized for survival, not wealth building. It craves immediate gratification, fears missing out, and completely undervalues long-term compound growth. The result? You chase meme stocks, panic sell during market dips, and completely ignore the boring investments that actually create millionaires. But here's what's fascinating. The wealthiest investors have learned to work with their psychology, not against it. They understand 3 fundamental psychological principles that most people never discover. Let's explore why your brain chooses financial self-destruction and how 3 specific ETFs can rewire your investment psychology. Chapter 1 is about the dopamine trap and why your brain is literally addicted to making terrible investment decisions. Here's what happens in your brain when you see GameStop shoot up 1,500%. Your ventral tegmental area floods your system with dopamine, the same chemical released during gambling, drug use, and other addictive behaviors. Dr. Brian Knutson's research at Stanford using brain imaging technology reveals something shocking. When people see potential for massive, immediate gains, their brains show the exact same activity patterns as cocaine addicts seeing their drug of choice. You're not making investment decisions. You're feeding an addiction. This is why meme stocks and cryptocurrencies are so psychologically powerful. They trigger what neuroscientists call intermittent variable rewards, unpredictable payoffs that create the strongest addiction patterns known to science. Your brain becomes conditioned to crave the next big score, the next viral stock, the next moonshot crypto. Meanwhile, boring investments that grow 10% annually trigger zero dopamine response. But here's where it gets interesting. The investors who build real wealth have learned to hack this system. They understand that sustainable wealth building requires what I call dopamine discipline, the ability to find psychological satisfaction in steady, predictable growth rather than chaotic volatility. This is where SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, becomes psychologically powerful. It's designed to satisfy your brain's need for regular rewards through quarterly dividend payments, while avoiding the boom-bust cycles that destroy wealth. SCHD has delivered over 110% total returns in the past decade by focusing on companies that consistently increase their dividend payments. Your brain gets regular dopamine hits from those dividend payments, while your wealth compounds quietly in the background. The psychological beauty of dividend investing is that it retrains your brain to associate investing with regular, predictable rewards rather than chaotic gambling. Companies like Broadcom, PepsiCo, and Texas Instruments don't provide the adrenaline rush of meme stocks, but they provide something far more valuable: psychological conditioning that builds wealth rather than destroys it. Most investors never learn this principle. They remain trapped in the dopamine cycle, chasing the next big score while their portfolios hemorrhage money through poor timing and emotional decisions. Chapter 2 reveals why your brain rejects diversification and how this cognitive bias keeps you poor. Here's a psychological experiment that will blow your mind. Dr. Amos Tversky showed people two investment options. Option A, 100% chance of gaining $3,000. Option B, 80% chance of gaining $4,000, 20% chance of gaining nothing. Most people chose option A, even though option B has higher expected value. Your brain is hardwired to overvalue certainty and undervalue optimal mathematical outcomes. This certainty bias explains why people put all their money into single stocks they understand rather than diversified ETFs that actually reduce risk. Your brain looks at Apple stock and thinks, I know this company, I use their products. This feels safe. But it looks at a diversified ETF containing hundreds of companies and thinks, this is too complicated, too many variables. This is backward psychology. Concentrating your money in one or two stocks is actually far riskier than diversifying across hundreds of companies. But your brain can't process complex probability distributions. It craves the illusion of control that comes from picking winners rather than accepting the mathematical reality of diversification. This psychological trap is why URRA, the Global X Uranium ETF, makes such smart sense from a behavioral perspective. Instead of trying to pick which individual uranium mining company will succeed, you invest in the entire uranium supply chain. URRA has returned 38% over the past 12 months by capturing the global shift toward nuclear energy. But more importantly, it removes the psychological burden of trying to predict individual companies' success. Your brain gets to participate in a massive global trend, the nuclear energy revolution, without the stress of betting everything on one company's ability to execute. The psychological power of sector ETFs like URRA is that they align with your brain's pattern recognition abilities while removing the cognitive overload of individual stock selection. You can focus on understanding big picture trends, like the world's shift to clean energy, rather than trying to analyze hundreds of individual mining companies. This is smart diversification that works with your psychology rather than against it. You maintain the feeling of making strategic investment decisions while mathematically reducing your risk. Chapter 3 explores the innovation paradox, why your brain simultaneously craves the future while being terrified of investing in it. Here's a fascinating psychological contradiction. People get excited about new technologies like gene editing, artificial intelligence, and breakthrough medical treatments. But when it comes to investing in these innovations, their brains freeze with analysis paralysis. Dr. Sheena Iyengar's research at Columbia reveals why, when faced with too many options, your brain shuts down and chooses nothing. This is called choice overload, and is why most people never invest in innovation sectors. Your brain looks at the biotech industry and sees thousands of companies working on experimental treatments. It becomes overwhelmed trying to predict which specific company will develop the next breakthrough drug. So instead of investing in innovation, most people stick with safe investments they understand, often missing the biggest wealth creation opportunities of their lifetime. This psychological barrier is exactly why XBI, the SPDR, SP Biotech ETF, is so brilliant from a behavioral perspective. XBI uses equal weighting across dozens of biotech companies, which means you don't have to predict which specific company will cure cancer or develop the next breakthrough gene therapy. The ETF has rebounded over 20% since 2023 by capturing the entire biotech innovation wave. When CRISPR Therapeutics announces a successful gene editing trial, you benefit. When a different company gets FDA approval for a new treatment, you benefit. Your brain gets to participate in the most exciting wealth creation sector of our time, biotechnology, without the paralysis of trying to pick individual winners. The psychological beauty of innovation ETFs like XBI is that they transform overwhelming complexity into simple exposure. You're not trying to understand the molecular biology of 17 different cancer treatments. You're simply betting that human innovation will continue advancing. This aligns perfectly with your brain's natural optimism bias while removing the cognitive burden of technical analysis. Most importantly, XBI's equal weighting structure means smaller, more agile companies have the same influence as larger established firms. This captures your brain's intuitive understanding that breakthrough innovations often come from small, focused teams rather than massive corporations. The psychological result: you get to feel like you're investing in the future without the stress of trying to predict exactly what that future will look like. Chapter 4 reveals how combining these three ETFs creates what I call the wealth psychology trifecta: a portfolio designed to work with your brain rather than against it. Here's what most investors don't understand. Successful investing isn't about finding the perfect investment. It's about creating a psychological system that keeps you invested during market volatility. The 3 ETF combination, SCHD for stability, URRA for growth, and XBI for innovation, isn't just mathematical diversification, it's psychological diversification. Each ETF satisfies different aspects of your investment psychology. SCHD satisfies your brain's need for regular rewards through quarterly dividends. Instead of checking your portfolio obsessively for price movements, you receive predictable income that reinforces positive investment behavior. URRA satisfies your brain's need to participate in major global trends. You're not just buying stocks, you're investing in humanity's energy future. This gives your investments meaning beyond pure profit, which research shows increases long-term commitment. XBI satisfies your brain's need for growth and innovation exposure. You're participating in breakthrough medical research that could extend human lifespan and cure diseases. This emotional connection helps you hold through volatility. Together, these 3 ETFs create what behavioral economists call optimal psychological diversification. When biotech stocks are down, your uranium holdings might be up. When uranium prices are volatile, your dividend stocks provide steady income. Your brain never experiences the total despair that leads to panic selling. Dr. Richard Thaler's research shows that investors who create mental accounting buckets, different investments for different psychological needs, vastly outperform those who view their portfolio as one giant pool of money. The wealth psychology trifecta gives your brain 3 distinct sources of satisfaction: regular income, trend participation, and innovation exposure. Most importantly, this combination transforms investing from an emotional roller coaster into a systematic wealth-building machine. Your brain stops trying to time markets or chase performance because each component serves a different psychological function. The result is what wealthy investors call boring wealth building, a portfolio that grows steadily without requiring constant attention or generating emotional stress. So here's the truth about investment psychology. Your brain is your biggest enemy when it comes to building wealth. It craves immediate gratification over compound growth. It seeks certainty over optimal mathematics. It fears innovation while chasing yesterday's trends. But now you understand the 3 psychological traps that keep most investors poor. And you know how 3 specific ETFs can rewire your investment psychology for long-term success. SCHD programs your brain for patience through regular dividend rewards. URRA aligns your investments with global trends your brain can understand and believe in. XBI lets you participate in innovation without the paralysis of picking individual winners. This isn't just about ETFs. This is about understanding that successful investing is fundamentally a psychological game. The wealthiest investors aren't smarter than you. They're not luckier than you. They've simply learned to work with their psychology rather than fighting against it. Your brain will always prefer the excitement of meme stocks over the boredom of diversified ETFs. That preference will keep you poor unless you consciously override it. The question isn't whether you can pick winning stocks. The question is whether you can build the psychological systems that make wealth building automatic. Remember, every fortune in history was built by people who learned to delay gratification, embrace diversification, and invest in the future rather than chase the past. Your brain hasn't evolved since the Stone Age, but your investment strategy can. The choice is yours. Continue feeding your brain's addiction to financial chaos, or build the psychological frameworks that create lasting wealth. Which psychology will you choose?